Hello, everybody. I'm Chandler,
And I'm Celeste.
and this is
True North Terror. And it is going to be a terrifying episode.
C.
Because we're talking about Robert, aka Willie Pickton,
Robert.
aka Ratface.
Yep.
It's going to be 3 parts because there's a lot.
Yeah.
But we are not cruel people, so we will not make you wait 3 weeks to listen. We'll do probably Monday, Thursday, Monday.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll need a good palate cleanser after that.
100%. I
My
think we will need
Reddit stories or
Reddit
something.
stories or some kind of ghost shit.
Yeah, because
So,
this is a lot.
yeah.
It's just a lot. Okay, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
So Robert Pickton, aka Willie, aka Ratface, was born October 24th, 1949 in British Columbia to Leonard Pickton and Louise Arnall. Robert was the middle child with an older sister, Linda, and a younger brother, David, which is like, Linda, listen.
Linda, listen.
Robert and his siblings were born and raised in Port Coquitlam. I feel like I need to look it up, even though I've been
Port
looking at it.
Quacky?
They call it Port Quality.
Port Quality?
No.
Or Quati?
I meant to do this before we started. Where's the pronunciation? Coquitlam.
Coquitlam.
Port Coquitlam, otherwise Poco, and I will not be saying the full name ever again, on their parents' pig farm. Like most serial killers, Robert did not have a super ideal childhood. His mother was obsessed with working on the farm and had no interest in personal hygiene. It was reported she let all of her teeth rot out, lost all her hair, but grew a full beard.
A girl.
And she would always wear a house coat, like no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. She forced her children to work every free moment they had on the farm. Their dad, Leonard, was incredibly abusive. Louise prioritized the pigs and other animals on the farm over her own children's welfare. She was extremely demanding of her expectations of the kids helping out around the farm. She constantly had them dressed in dirty, tattered clothes that reeked of pig, and the children only bathed once a week, like at best.
Gross.
The family also allowed the farm animals to just like come and go through the house.
What the fuck?
I know. I was like, excuse me? Like they would just leave the door open and be like, yeah, sure. Come on, piggy, come on in.
Pig. What
So
the fuck?
it was like literally a pigsty. Robert recalled the only new clothes he was ever given, and the starch on the clean clothes made him so uncomfortable he just like ripped them off and just was like, fuck it, I'm going naked for the day instead.
What the fuck?
Due to his hygiene, he was relentlessly bullied in school, given the nickname Stinky Piggy.
That's a good one.
He also did not excel in school and was put into a special education class after failing grade 2, which made him feel very embarrassed.
Oh no.
Which is fair. When he was only 12 years old, he began raising his own calf, which he bought for $35. The calf was like his BFF, and one day after school, he returned home, unable to find his precious moo cow. He searched the farm, and finally, his dad was like, you should go, like, check out the barn, maybe. And he's like, oh, I haven't thought about that yet. He went and found a gruesome scene. His pet calf was hanging from the barn ceiling, butchered and disemboweled. His dad's like, yeah, go find it. When he knew he killed it.
What the fuck?
Robert didn't speak for several days after this discovery, clearly in shock. This is one of the times where he also decided to get away from the world. He was going to hide in a pig carcass.
Huh?
That was one of his, like, I don't want to deal with being me. I'm going to go live inside a pig carcass for a while. Yeah.
I could understand if you needed to be warm. Like
No, he
Star
just
Wars.
yeah, exactly. That's what I thought of too. But no, he just didn't wanna. He just didn't. He couldn't even. You know.
When was this?
And I have to go all the way up. 19. Well, this is in 1949. He was 12. So, don't ask me to figure that out.
Before Empire.
Inspired. Robert reflected on
That's
a lot of
crazy.
other traumatic events of abuse during his childhood, one of which when he was only 3 years old. He was sitting in the farm truck when he accidentally put the truck into neutral. He sat panicked as the truck rolled down the hill. Pigs started jumping out the back. They were like, "We out." Robert's father was like screaming at him to stop the truck, but he's only 3. He's like, "Stop the truck." It's me. How?
Truck go far.
Truck go far. The truck ended up crashing into a hydro pole, and Leonard ripped Robert out of the truck and just started beating him severely. It's like he's 3 years old.
Jesus Christ.
When he was only 4, he decided to try to smoke a cigarette. Louise caught him, and she was like, "Absolutely not." So she forced him to smoke an entire cigar with the thought that it would stop him from ever trying another cigarette, which it indeed did stop him from ever smoking another cigarette. He never touched another cigar or cigarette. So it worked, I guess.
Fair enough.
As Robert matured into a young teenager, he developed an intense fear of baths and showers.
Fear.
Yeah. Like he had a phobia of like having a bath or a shower.
What?
So already smelly Robert just got smellier. The bullying at school intensified, and he decided to drop out halfway through high school when he was about 14. Instead of being upset like most parents would be, Louise was like, "Hell yes."
More time on the farm,
Yes.
son.
Yeah. She
Get
was
your ass
like,
to work.
yeah, literally. She was pumped. She's like, "I got full-time help on the farm now." And she was like, "You, sir, your main duty is to be a butcher." But his butchering technique was not super humane. It was reported that he would shoot the pigs between the eyes with a nail gun and then cut like their hock, like their Achilles, and then hang them to bleed out. Yeah, super cool,
That
dude.
doesn't sound right. I feel like that sounds very slow.
Despite a toxic relationship with their parents, the 3 siblings got along really well. Robert and David were inseparable when they were on the farm together. Their father taught them about animal husbandry and also butchering. And Robert actually started a butchering apprenticeship that was going to last 7 years, but he dropped out when there was only 6 months left.
What a fucking
It's
idiot.
like, you have 6 months, you've committed 6.5 years. He's
Wow.
like, nah.
Dipshit.
Yeah. David and Robert didn't mind the farm, but their sister absolutely hated it. In 1963, the family actually ended up relocating their farm to another property, even moving their entire house, which is like your house that your pigs also live in, like just build a new one. And at this time, Linda left the farm to live with family in Vancouver because it was no place for a young woman.
No.
And she stayed away as much as possible, which fair. In 1965, the family had a brilliant idea for a business on the farm. Since freezers weren't super popular in households at this point, they decided to buy a bunch of deep freezers to store customers' meat. So they would like sell the meat and then charge them a fee to keep the meat there.
Yeah.
Pretty smart.
It's a good business model.
Yeah, you know what? One thing about Louise is she's a smart woman and she likes to work.
Smart lady with a beard.
Smart lady with a beard, yeah. Her beard is full of secrets.
Knowledge of the universe.
Another disturbing incident involving the Pickton family happened in 1967, revolving around David. David had just got his license. He was 16 years old. While driving, he hit a 14-year-old.
Oh.
Tim Barrett. He was like, "Oh boy, this is bad." He looked back, saw Tim laying motionless and mangled. So he raced home to tell his parents, and his mom jumped into the truck instead of calling the police. And her and David raced back to the scene. Louise didn't really have like any interest in trying to help Tim though. So instead she leaned over and just like kicked a severely injured but still alive 14-year-old Tim down the edge of a deep ditch where he drowned.
Okay, so Louise is a murderer.
Yes. That's another thing about her.
Oh my
She's a
god.
businesswoman, but also a murderer. David was horrified, but he knew he needed to start covering his tracks. So he brought the car to a mechanic in town, like their family
Mechanic.
mechanic. And he was like, "Can you please fix my headlight and the dent in the bumper?"
And the blood.
Meanwhile, Tim's parents were panicked. They called neighbors and friends, hoping someone had seen Tim or he was just playing with a friend and lost track of time. While searching the road area, Tim's father spotted his shoe.
Oh
Him and a
no.
neighbor who was aiding in the search went over to the steep ditch and looked over, spotting Tim's body. The police arrived on the scene quickly and pulled his lifeless body out of the water. It was later determined that he had died from drowning, but also had a fractured skull, fractured pelvis, and subcranial hemorrhaging. But it was clear that he entered the water still alive, and like all of those injuries, if he had gotten medical attention, would not have killed him. So, yeah, like Louise basically murdered him by tossing him down the
Yeah.
ditch. David was arrested and charged, where a coroner's jury ultimately decided that this was just an accident. David was sent to juvenile court. Despite Louise's involvement, she was never charged. This was somewhat of a turning point for Robert because Louise had basically demonstrated that the loss of life was not important, and also, you could just get away with it.
Yeah.
Robert continued his life close to his mother and with no social life outside of the farm. He didn't drink or smoke and was incredibly socially awkward, on top of being extremely unhygienic.
Gross.
He spent nearly all of his time with Louise, while David started to date and grow a larger social circle. Robert resorted to finding relationships with women by finding female pen pals. At 24 years old, Robert decided it was time to take a vacation to meet his pen pal girlfriend, Connie, in Pontiac, Michigan. He made a little road trip out of it, stopping at several destinations along the way. In total, he was away for about 6 weeks. At this time, he wrote to another pen pal named Victoria and bragged that he was stopped and offered a modeling gig. He was like, "I wasn't really interested though, so I declined." Is
Why
that
is
your
the
coffee
coffee machine
machine?
running? Sorry. One sec.
Okay, him and Connie spent some time together, and when he left, he boasted that they were engaged.
What?
But
I feel
whether
like
the
that's not true.
engagement was true or not, he did have to break up with Connie shortly after returning back to the farm. Connie was the love of his life, but he couldn't leave his life at the farm, and she was not interested in joining him there and leaving her own career. So their beautiful love story ended, and Robert continued to work in nearly solitude on the farm. Around this time, he also started to make some extra money as a driver for the British Columbia Hydro. 1976 was a big year for the family. Robert was 27 when his sister Linda got married and became nearly estranged. She only contacted her family for business. David was steadily dating a woman named Sandy, who he had 2 children with, and they all lived on the farm. In early 1978, Leonard passed away from a short battle with cancer. Another blow to the family was Sandy leaving with her children due to David constantly cheating on her.
No, that'll do it.
This was really devastating for Robert. He really loved Sandy and actually at one point proposed to her, even though he was like, she was with his brother.
What a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Then there was a fire in one of the pig barns, killing over 600 pigs and completely demolishing the barn. Robert's mother, Louise, was diagnosed with cancer and passed away in April of 1979. Robert was devastated to lose his mother, but another stab at Robert was about to come when the will was read. Despite living in dirty and poor conditions, the family was actually quite well off. But shockingly, even though Robert was the most involved with the farm, he didn't get the best deal out of the will. Louise split the estate between the 3 children. She said Linda was the accountant, David was the truck driver, and they were both going to receive $86,000 immediately. But Robert was described as the farmhand. He would receive $20,000 immediately,
Oh my god.
but would not receive the remaining $66,000 until he turned 40, which was in nearly 10 years. And in order to get the remainder, he had to stay on the farm. So she trapped him there. Robert was shocked, upset. He felt super betrayed and angry, but he used his money to purchase a 1977 Ford truck and quit being a farmhand. He dove deep into the world of mechanics. He found a new passion and was known to be able to fix literally anything mechanical.
Hmm.
He started a little business of selling usable parts from junked cars and selling the copper to scrapyards. Robert's new business turned the family farmyard into a junkyard. Meanwhile, Linda was thriving as a real estate agent and living in a super bougie neighborhood.
Good for her.
David had a well-off demolition company that he also he invested his inheritance into starting. And neither of them wanted anything to do with the farm. Robert would also gather client orders and go to livestock auctions, bidding for his clients and butchering the animals for them. He would take the animal waste to Vancouver to dump at the West Coast for production. Robert went to the animal waste yard so often that the employees knew him by name and would constantly just wave him through without any inspection, which later
That's gonna
is a
come back.
problem. The waste yard was
That's
only
gonna come
10
back.
blocks from Vancouver's notorious downtown east side. Downtown east side is one of Vancouver's oldest neighborhoods, but unfortunately not a great one. In the 1980s, it was very impoverished with lots of homelessness, mental illness, crime, drugs, and sex work. And honestly, not much has changed. The city started growing west, kind of leading downtown east side in the dust and trying to congregate the crime and drugs into one area.
Yeah.
By 1997, there was actually a public health emergency declared in the area due to HIV and a huge number of drug overdoses. The residents of downtown Eastside have a very long negative history and distrust with police. Around this time, Robert started to sell cigarettes and alcohol as well as gamble on cockfighting. He just does it all, you know? David started to get associated with the Hells Angels biker gang and convinced Robert to allow the gang to hide stolen goods and insurance fraud money within his junkyard.
Huh.
David's business started to get busy and he recruited Robert to take over the chop shop side as David maintained the demolition portion. They started to gain a reputation within Poco within the different crime rings. The local police caught wind that the farm was a known Hells Angel hangout, and they came to investigate, but there was a much bigger local priority. At the time, there was a serial killer who was targeting children. His name was Clifford Olson. When convicted, he was convicted with 11 counts of murder in 1981, and at the time, he was Canada's most prolific serial killer, but that title was not going to last long. Around this time, one of David's lady friends had enough of his shit and left the farm. Once she left, she heard rumors going around that the Pickton brothers were making snuff films. She added to the rumors that she would never eat any of the meat that came off the farm. But the kind of gross thing was they were actually a pretty major supplier for Western Canada.
Yeah, for Maple Leaf.
So Robert continued his frequent trips to the rendering plant to drop animal waste. After each drop-off, he would take the scenic route of going through the east side of downtown Vancouver.
Hastings and
Yeah.
shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would park his truck and watch the people roaming the streets, paying special attention to sex workers. He had heard about them from David and his biker gang friends. Around this time, Kim Pemberton, a young and upcoming police reporter at the Vancouver Sun, started to notice and hear of missing women, particularly sex workers. Some of these women were already found murdered, but some seemed to vanish without a trace. She started to press the police, and whenever they would announce another murdered woman, she would ask if they were a sex worker. But she was starting to connect the dots before the police were. Someone was targeting these women. But the police didn't really see this young reporter as an intelligent woman. They would scoff at her and roll their eyes, clearly unbothered. They had no interest in listening to her theories of a serial killer, even though the 1980s was when many well-known serial killers were active.
Mm-hmm.
In 1987, the RCMP finally received enough pressure to set up a special task force dedicated to the problem of missing and murdered sex workers, but they were unable to gather enough evidence, and the task force quickly dissolved only 2 years later in 1989, even though the rate of murders and missing women was not slowing down. Sex workers started to chip in any way they could, looking out for each other and gathering at a safe house called Wish. This was a safe place where they were offered clean beds, meals, and a community, and even counseling and medical treatment. They started to keep record in a book of men who were giving them bad vibes or who had attacked them,
Mm.
keeping a journal of license plates and descriptions of the men. Later on, it was discovered that Robert's name was recorded on several occasions. This information was presented to police, but nothing came of it. Around this time, a woman even claimed and filed a police report indicating that Robert tried to kidnap her and assaulted her, but nothing was done.
Jesus.
The women knew they needed to put much more pressure on police and make more noise. They came together and held a Valentine's Day remembrance walk, and they continued to press the police for updates as they reported more and more women missing. They didn't want these women brushed under the rug. In 1991, the RCMP decided to try another approach and contacted a team of profilers. The idea of profiling was quite new and still a bit controversial. The criminal profilers would create a profile on the killer based on their victims, method of murder, and any other consistencies to paint a picture of what type of person this killer may be and
Mm.
potential patterns. The recruitment of the profiling team put old school homicide detectives on edge. They were like, "We the good old boys. We don't need your new help." They
That's
still
very good.
believed in door knocking, interviews, and forensic evidence such as fingerprints. Determining motive was the only way to catch a killer. They didn't consider that their methods and their profiling actually went like hand in hand, you
Yeah.
know? Like this is just
It
another
narrows
thing to help
down
you. Yeah.
knocking on doors. Did you watch Long Legs?
Yeah. Wait, did I? Is that with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The very start of that movie where they're
Yeah.
knocking on doors.
Yeah.
She's like, he's in that house.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's such a good movie actually.
Yeah, fucking classic. Instant classic. Sorry.
It's okay.
Anyways.
A new team was formed with an old school homicide detective and a team of profilers. Their task force was called Project Eclipse, and they had a caseload of 25 unsolved cases of missing sex workers.
Holy shit.
While the task force began the work, Robert continued his. His next victim was 25-year-old Nancy Clark, mother to two daughters, 8 years old and only 8 months old. She was from Vancouver Island. She was sweet and caring, sensible, devoted mother. On her older daughter's birthday, she didn't return from work. This was highly alarming for her family, as they knew that she was also a sex worker, but she would never miss her daughter's birthday.
Oh.
The police did not connect her to the East Side disappearances, but Robert and David had gone to Vancouver for a demolition job, conveniently at the same time that Nancy went missing.
Very convenient.
Project Eclipse wasn't making much progress, but they decided to bring in bodies and recruited 5 more profilers, several of which were from the FBI. In addition to the team was a young Vancouver Police Department officer named Kim Rosmo. He had 8 years' experience downtown as a beat cop and was highly intelligent. He was in the process of developing a brand new theory called geographic profiling. This basically linked a single perpetrator by thorough analyzation of the crime locations and connecting them. His idea was one that would become common practice. Serial killers operate where they are comfortable and know the environment well, and he was basically like the first to kind of figure that out. Their profilers went back to work using several different tactics, including the geographic profiling. This team was a big deal. It was one of the first times that international profilers started working on a case together. This team ended up changing how police work was done to this day. The team began to sort the murders into different groups. They determined that 4 of them were definitely the same killer, but connected the other 2 murders to 2 potential other killers. They presented their theory to the Vancouver Police Department, but they weren't interested. Kim Rosmo left the meeting furious, saying he believed the reason they did not want to pursue the cases was due to laziness and overall lack of resources. This was frustrating for the entire Project Eclipse team. This was a completely different case that had ever been worked on, and they realized they needed to take a completely different approach. The police department had no idea how to proceed with the information that was presented to them. The years went on. Robert and David continued their affiliation with Hells Angels, and the farm became a hangout spot with frequent parties. Despite a community growing on his own farmland, Robert still continued to be socially awkward outsider. He was like just the watcher. He'd watch the party around him, staying close to the barbecue. He discovered he really enjoyed cooking for crowds and barbecuing, and started another side hustle of pig roast business. He became locally famous for his barbecue pigs, and the business started thriving for him and his business partner, Pat. The weird thing, though, was he would never use his own pigs. He always had an excuse for why he outsourced them. Like, he'd be like, oh, yeah, they were sick or whatever. In 1992, David was convicted of sexual assault. He already had a pretty long rap sheet of traffic accidents because obviously he's not a very good driver. He killed a 14-year-old. The woman he assaulted was a female employee at one of his excavation job sites. He cornered her, pushed her against the wall, and assaulted her. She immediately filed with the police, and he was found guilty, but only received probation and a $1,000 fine.
The fuck?
I know. After the conviction, she was constantly harassed and threatened by other employees who told her she was going to be cut to pieces if she didn't leave town.
Wow.
She fled and lived with fear and PTSD. David came off as a bit of a dummy, but people suspected he was actually super intelligent. He was running several successful businesses and was super charismatic. He had several girlfriends at this time, but he continued to look for sex workers, bringing them back to the farm where him and Robert still lived together. The next woman to go missing was in 1992. 39-year-old Kathleen Watley went missing from downtown Eastside. She was reported missing wearing a yellow blouse and black miniskirt. Only 4 months later, 40-year-old mother to four, Elsie Sebastian, also disappeared. Her 4 adult children were devastated. She was a warm and loving woman with a good sense of humor. Her family advocated for her, but the police saying she was deeply loved and so much more than just a sex worker. But the Vancouver police weren't interested in hearing their pleas for help. The police even hesitated to report her as a missing woman. The police really dropped the ball here.
Dude, what the fuck? These sound like LA police from
Yeah.
the 80s.
In
Not Vancouver police.
No, yeah, like it's brutal.
Like, that's fucking awful.
Yeah. In 1993, Teresa Louise Triff was the next to vanish. She was 31 years old, petite with curly blonde hair and blue eyes from Edmonton. At this point, 15 women had disappeared from downtown Eastside in Vancouver between 1979 to 1993. So at this point, 15 women had disappeared from downtown Eastside in Vancouver between 1979 to 1993. Shortly after Teresa's disappearance, the relationship between David and Robert started to crumble. They were having a hard time getting along, living together. Robert actually ended up living in a shed, sleeping on top of a freezer for a while.
Oh.
But they eventually came to an agreement that Robert would live on the property in a camper and David would remain in the farmhouse, which, like, you know what? I think Robert got a good deal because the pigs weren't living in the house. Both were happy with the agreement and the tensions started to settle. Even with the disgusting living conditions and being complete assholes, they both seemed to always have girls around. Mostly
That's so
women
crazy.
that were desperate for a roof over their heads. One of Robert's long-term roommates was a woman named Tanya. She stayed with Robert for nearly 2 years, starting in 1994. Their relationship was not sexual, although sometimes they would cuddle. She frequented bars and would come home late to find that Robert wasn't home. She didn't ask where he was, just assumed he was out with the Hells Angels gang, likely doing illegal activity.
Right.
But Robert was a good friend to her and she trusted him. Eventually, she moved out to live with a boyfriend, but she still visited the farm each day, helping out where she could. She was never suspicious that Robert could be a man that was responsible for all the missing and murdered women. After Tanya left, Robert ended up finding another potential partner. Lisa was a 38-year-old woman with 2 early teen boys. She was previously a sex worker and was still active in the biker scene, so she was sometimes hanging out around the farm with a biker gang. She lived nearby the farm, and her older son was friends with David's older son. So, like, their kids were friends.
Right.
One late night, Robert discovered Lisa's sons were out past their curfew and delivered them back to their house. Lisa was super grateful for the kind gesture, and the two of them struck a friendship. Shortly after her and her sons moved to the farm, Lisa was disgusted by his living conditions and lack of hygiene and frequently encouraged him to shower and helped him clean up the place. But Lisa smoked in the house, which Robert complained about. And overall, they were getting along. They would also cuddle sometimes, despite not having a sexual relationship. Robert was a good friend to her. He would send her home with packaged meat, but David didn't like Lisa, despite their friends being best friends. He would constantly tease her. She described David as the dominant one in the relationship with Robert and David, and said that David seemed to get pleasure out of bossing Robert around. Lisa also wasn't suspicious of Robert being the predator responsible for the missing woman, but later on she did say that he kind of reminded her a bit of Ed Gein.
Mother.
After reading about him, she noticed that they had a lot of similarities: toxic and controlling relationships with their mothers, social awkwardness and seclusion, but she kept her thoughts to herself, confident that he would never hurt her. She wasn't afraid of Robert. He always treated her well and stood up for her against David. In 1994, Gina met Robert when he was in his mid-40s in downtown Eastside. Her and her friend were walking down the streets when Robert approached them asking for oral sex. He seemed very confident in picking up sex workers. Gina's friend agreed to go with him in the car. He paid her immediately and then drove away. David and Robert picked up a demolition job in North Vancouver when Robert quickly got tired of the commute and decided to bring his trailer to the demolition site and stay there, convincing David that it would be additional security for the site. But unfortunately, this location was also very close to the downtown east side. He developed a routine of going to local bars and looking for people down on their luck. He would only drink soda because he didn't drink or smoke. And when he found a woman that interested him, he would give her money for drugs, but he didn't use the drugs. So it was more of like an incentive for them to drive around with him and then go back to his place to keep partying. The woman continued to go missing. 35-year-old Lee Miner was desperate to get clean. She had a rough couple of years, with her father dying suddenly of a heart attack and then her husband dying by suicide in her arms
Oh my god.
after he shot himself. Lee was in deep pain and completely devastated. She unfortunately turned to heroin to numb her grief. In 1986, she discovered she was pregnant, but unable to stay clean, her daughter ended up living with her mother. Her family was desperate to help Lee get on the right path and decided to move from California to BC, thinking maybe all she needed was a change of scenery. As desperate as she was to get clean, she couldn't shake her addiction to heroin and ended up working as a sex worker in downtown Eastside. Christmas Day 1994, her family waited, wrapped gifts surrounding them as they waited for Lee to return, but she never did. Her mother searched the streets of downtown Eastside, unable to find her. She immediately went to file a missing person report, but the police were not interested. Nothing happened to find Lee. The next woman to go missing was 17-year-old Angela Arsenault. Her and her boyfriend had just finished shopping downtown, and she hopped on a bus home, never to be seen again. She was last seen in downtown Eastside. In 1995, there was an influx of missing women during the summer. Catherine Gonzalez was a 27-year-old mother to a young daughter. She went missing. Then Catherine Knight, also 27. She had a rough childhood, growing up in poverty and resorting to sex work at only 15 as she was homeless. Dorothy Spence was 33. She was last seen in July. Her and her family were very close. Her family raised the alarm when she went missing, but again, nothing was done. The final woman to go missing in summer of 1995 was Diana Melnick, only 20 years old. She didn't grow up as you would expect. She went to a private school and grew up in a steady family home, but she struggled with addiction. Back at the Pickton farm, big changes were happening. Linda was now a successful realtor and saw a potential to sell off some of the farmland to the growing community. In 1994, she sold off a chunk of land for $1.76 million.
Boy.
The next year, the city of Poco purchased a chunk of land from the family for $1.17 million, then another for $2.3 million, where they planned to build a school. The Picktons were all steadily making money before these sales, but now they were doing really well. Linda lined her pockets with cash and distanced herself more now than ever, feeling her work was done.
Yeah.
With a pocket full of cash, David had another idea for business. He wanted to open up a bar. So he purchased a section of land near the farm and renovated one of the existing sheds. He catered the building of the bar to his biker friends, knowing that they would be consistent customers. The bar was rustic, with most of the decor being salvaged from other restaurants and bars that had closed down. David had the perfect name for his new endeavor: Piggy's Palace.
Hey man, you want to hit Piggy's Palace on the way home? I heard it's really good.
Piggy's
The
Palace.
fuck?
It was actually a promising venture to make a steady living without the hard labor that they were used to. It was approved for 150 people. It had a dance hall, bar, and restaurant. Robert's favorite or famous barbecue pig was even on the menu.
Wow.
Local bands were always filling the space, but it also quickly turned into a known place for drug deals and sex workers. Robert decided this new opportunity meant it was time for a glow up. He purchased a hairpiece to cover the top of his head where he was balding, but it didn't last very long because he wasn't like taking care of the hairpiece or his own hair, so it just like went to shit. But he did purchase new clothing. He started to shower more frequently. And around this time, he upgraded into a mobile home on the farm property instead of living in a camper. He converted the living room into a spare bedroom where friends could stay. Women sought shelter there in return for cleaning the home and keeping him company. But the new clean start did not last long. Soon the mobile home was filthy and not suitable for company. But Piggy's Palace was booming, and they incorporated it into Piggy's Palace Good Time Society. They advertised it as the perfect place to host charitable events, but the reality was it was a seedy baker's paradise. The Hells Angels would host their own parties there nearly every weekend, completely taking over the place. But still, they maintained a decent reputation. Even cops would go after hours to hang out.
Wow.
It was known as a great local spot with good music and good food. Eventually, they even added security and bouncers. But it also didn't take long before the neighbors started to complain about the parties and rowdiness. After several complaints, the city tried to shut the parties down, but the Picktons were not ready to back down. Near the end of 1995, residents started to notice the large number of women going missing, and the rumor of a serial killer started floating around the city. 3 sex workers were found in the same area at the end of 1995. 30-year-old Tracy Oligide, 24-year-old Tammy Pipe, and 35-year-old Victoria Yunker. The police started to now feel pressure from the community to solve the crimes. They went through several violent offenders on parole, but none of their DNA matched. Rumors also started to float around that it was possible Robert was the person responsible for the missing and murdered woman. The RCMP were able to get a DNA sample, but it didn't match. So, like, they matched his DNA to these 3 bodies found. Or they weren't able to match it, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Like, they got DNA from him, tried to match it to the DNA found on these 3 bodies, but it didn't match. So they're like, I guess it's not him. Around this time, Gina came back into Robert's life. She was the one that was walking with a friend that was picked up by Robert. He didn't recognize her, but she recognized him. Gina had a reputation for being a con artist and clocked him as being someone that could be easily tricked. She took the place of Robert's female companion. Meanwhile, the young profiler Kim Rosmo, his geographic profiling was engineered into a software. He was turning into a big name around the country and in the criminal science community, but the Vancouver Police Department didn't see what the rest of the country was seeing. Their old way of doing things continued as they made Kim's life hell at the office, making his job impossible. But he did have one friend at the office, Chief Constable Ray Caniel. Kim received a promotion from Ray, who gave him a budget to continue his game-changing work. But still, the woman continued to go missing. In late spring of 1966, Fran Young, who was 36 years old, was the next to go missing. It was the same old thing: panicked family members reporting her missing. Police didn't care to investigate or take the disappearance seriously. Shortly after, Tanya Marlowe Hollick also went missing. She had recently moved to Vancouver to be with her biological mother after being adopted at only 2 years old. Tanya had a son who motivated her to stop doing drugs for a while. But on October 29th, 1996, she left her son with his father to go to a Halloween party and never came home. Her family tried to report her missing, but as per usual, they did not file anything and said she was probably just out partying. The last woman to disappear from downtown Eastside in 1996 was 22-year-old Olivia Williams. She had beautiful long brown hair and brown eyes. In 1996, we would also see the first woman to survive Robert Pickton's attack.
Oh shit.
Tracy Bryan lived in a small room with her husband in downtown Eastside. They were both struggling with addiction. Her husband would send her out to earn money for food and drugs. Tracy was depressed and was trying to kick her addiction so she could return to Victoria to see her 5 children. She had regular clients as a sex worker. Robert Pickton pulled up next to her as she roamed the streets asking for oral sex. She said she agreed to get into his car, but as soon as she did, she was hit with a terrible smell, describing his car as smelling like a barn. Despite the terrible stench, she still went back with him to his trailer. When she entered, she said it was absolutely disgusting. There was garbage everywhere and it smelled awful. After completing oral sex on him, Robert claimed he couldn't find his wallet. Then he pulled out a knife, accusing her of stealing it. He cut 2 buttons on her blouse, and she walked out of the trailer as he followed her with her bag. She got back into his car, and he drove her back to the downtown Eastside area, chatting away that he liked to help sex workers kick addiction. But he also casually said that if they couldn't kick their addiction, they didn't deserve to live.
What is this guy, fucking Jigsaw?
Yeah. He told Tracy that if they chose drugs, they were useless and better off dead. After the encounter, Tracy couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. She came to the conclusion that Robert could be the one responsible for all the missing women. She assumed he was trolling downtown Eastside looking for the most desperate woman. Tracy added his name to the sketchy client list that the sex workers were keeping. On January 1st, 1997, the first victim of the year was claimed. Literally, the first day of 1997. Maria Laliberti was 52 years old when she disappeared, but she was not reported missing for nearly 5 years.
What?
Yeah. On January 11th, Stephanie Lane, 20 years old, was last seen. She was loved and spoiled by her family, but had started hanging out with the wrong crowd and was introduced to heroin. She was in the beginning of detox. Then, in March, 29-year-old Sharon Evelyn Ward and 25-year-old Kara Ellis went missing. March of 1997 also saw another survivor of Robert Pickton, but she did not come out unscathed. The survivor's name was under publication ban for a very long time, but eventually her name was released, and we now know her as Wendy Lynn Isideter. Wendy was 30 years old at the time of her attack. She was a mother to 2 young kids that lived with her father in North Vancouver. She was another victim of addiction, her preferred drug being a combination of cocaine and heroin, also known as speedballs. The day she met Robert, she had just lost $60 gambling and was desperate to make some quick money. Robert pulled up next to her in his red truck asking her for oral sex. He offered her $100 to take her back to his trailer. Once in the car, she noticed that there was a woman's bra on the seat. She asked who it was, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's just from a date I had last weekend." She started to get a bad gut feeling, but she was trapped in the truck with Robert. Wendy entered Robert's trailer and immediately was struck by how dirty and smelly it was. She noticed a large butcher knife on the kitchen table. Before she could even face Robert, he had locked a handcuff on her left hand. Wendy began to kick and punch him, doing anything she could to get away. Her mind flashed to the knife on the table as he slapped and punched her. She backed up towards the kitchen, feeling for the knife when she was finally able to grab it. But instead of grabbing the handle, she grabbed the blade, slicing her palm. Ugh. But it didn't stop her. She readjusted her hand onto the handle of the knife and slashed at him in the face and throat. He grabbed a rag to stop the bleeding while grabbing a stick with the other hand, trying to hit her. She ran out the door, throwing anything she could at him. He caught her outside, pinning her against the truck as he stabbed her in the abdomen. She lost consciousness, but when she came to, he was on the ground, passing out from his stab wounds. Wendy grabbed the knife as she held her abdomen, trying to keep her intestines from falling out. She screamed for help, running up to 2 houses, banging and screaming, but no one answered. Suddenly, some headlights appeared on the road. She was terrified that it might be Robert looking for her, so she hid, but as the car got closer, she noticed 2 people, one being a woman, and ran onto the road screaming for help. The car stopped, and the man asked for her to not stab them. Wendy tossed the knife to the ground, and the man jumped out, assisting her into the car and rushing to the hospital.
Jesus.
As they drove off, she told the couple that if she didn't make it, the guy that attacked her lived on a trailer on the farm. The female passenger called 911, and the ambulance met them on the way to the Royal Columbian Hospital. The male driver told the police that Wendy claimed she also managed to stab her attacker. Wendy was swept into the operating room with a badly cut hand, punctured lung, and deep slashes to her abdomen, but the
Ew.
hospital staff were puzzled by the handcuff on her hand. They're like, so yeah, you're in rough shape, but like, what's this handcuff doing here? About 30 minutes later, Robert also arrived to the same hospital. He had tried to go to a smaller local hospital first, but they didn't have the ability to treat him. Robert arrived and was also admitted into surgery. While in surgery, the police officers decided to go through his clothes. They found a key to the handcuffs in one of his pant pockets. When they tried to unwind his handcuff, it released. Meanwhile, other officers were on the farm questioning neighbors. They noticed blood all over the front steps and doors. The police also found the knife. The police continued searching the farm for any other evidence. When Wendy finally was awake from surgery, she was able to give police her statement, giving them the full story of the encounter, but leaving out the fact that she was a sex worker. She was afraid that they would take the $100 Robert had paid her. She was able to leave the hospital a few weeks later, moving in with her sons and their father. She began the journey to being clean and entered a methadone program. But her past addiction ultimately won, and she was back on the streets as a sex worker. Robert was kept in the hospital for a few days to recover from his surgery and was charged with the attack, then released on a $2,000 bail and a no-contact order for Wendy. Robert's friend Lisa moved back in to help him with his recovery. On April 8, 1997, Robert was charged with attempted murder, unlawful confinement, and aggravated assault. Robert hired a super bougie lawyer, boasting to some friends that he paid $80,000 for him.
Jesus.
Wendy was left completely traumatized by the attack and was terrified to see Robert, and due to her falling back into drug habits, she was unable to cooperate with her lawyers or provide a helpful testimony. She also refused to attend court sessions. As a result of Wendy's reliability, the judge had no choice but to drop the charges against Robert. And that's where we're going to end part 1.
Damn. That's some bullshit.
Yeah, just like a ton of missing women. The police don't care. He just tried to murder someone. Got released on $2,000 bail.
Oh my god. That's fucked.
I also don't think that like victims' testimony should be the only thing that is relied upon in court.
No.
Like, you can't expect that woman to go into court and see that man and testify.
No. Use the evidence that you have.
Yeah, like they have
The fucking handcuffs.
Yeah.
That's insane.
More than enough evidence. She said that she stabbed him. He came in, stabbed. Like,
Yeah.
you have
She
lots.
had the handcuff on. He had the key.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
You had plenty of evidence.
Well,
we'll see you Thursday for part 2.
Yeah. Stay spooky, True Northers.
Terror is closer than you think. Thank you for joining us for another episode of True North Terror. If you like our podcast, please help us grow by leaving a rating and review. If you have a story you want us to hear, or your own personal story you want to hear on the pod as a listener story, email us at truenorthterrorpod@gmail.com. Join us next week for another episode of True North Terror.